Reliance Infosystems is a global ICT organization with multiple footprints around the world. Here, we focus on assisting companies to harness technology in achieving their business goals and objectives. So we pride ourselves in being IT solution providers that work very closely with our customers. And basically what we do is align our success strategy with your corporate objectives and empower you to be able to fully leverage the benefits that technology has to offer your organization. So how do we work with our customers? How are we going to work with your organization? That question is answered by our success outcome philosophy. So the fundamentals of our business is built around winning with our customers. Now, in order to do this, in order to win with our customers, we create a long-lasting relationship with you, a partnership that focuses on ensuring that you excel and indeed derive value from the solutions that we provide. So we do not just give you technology, we are ready to provide the support, the guidance you need to ensure that you're able to fully utilize the benefits that our digital solutions and services has to offer. And we do this because here at Reliance Infosystems, we measure our success by the quantum of progress our input has enabled you to attain. Now, over the years, we have been recognized for our role in pioneering global digital transformation. And here are some of the awards we have received, speaking to the effectiveness of our efforts within the IT space. Also, to do what we do best, we partner strategically with several OEMs around the world. Currently, we are in top partnerships with Microsoft, Sophos, Avaya, Cisco, Poly, Adobe, and a long list of multinational IT firms. For our footprints, we are physically located in about 15 countries, with digital footprints in about 50 countries presently around the world. Also, we've received several solution partner designations and specializations. So we have received several solution partner designations and specializations within Microsoft, and this is as a result of our demonstrated expertise across key solution areas within Microsoft. So presently, we have been recognized as experts in data and AI, digital and app innovation, infrastructure, business applications, modern work, as well as security. So we also have 3 success pillars that guide our mode of operations here at Reliance Infosystems. Those pillars include business transformation, operational excellence, and protection assurance. Now, for business transformation, we assist businesses to transform digitally. We help you lower costs. We help you boost your efficiency and maximize your productivity by enabling you to harness exciting cloud computing benefits. So under this pillar, we offer cloud hosting solutions, process automation, data center modernization, intelligent building solutions, and so much more. For operational excellence, we basically empower you to boost your efficiency, boost your productivity, streamline your processes, and basically improve on your operations. So here we offer several solutions. We offer modern ERP solutions, customer engagement solutions, data platform, business intelligence, robotic process automation, and so much more. Then for protection assurance, we offer a service we refer to as rest of mind as a service, which is a scenario where we handle all your cybersecurity concerns, enabling you to focus solely on your productivity. So within this pillar, we give you gateway protection, we give you endpoint protection, penetration testing, security intelligence, and a long list of ultra-modern cybersecurity solutions and services. So that's a brief overview of Reliance Infosystems. In order not to take up more time, we'll just proceed with the workshop.
All right. Good day, everyone. Welcome to this comprehensive workshop on migrating your Linux estate to Azure. This session is brought to you by Microsoft in partnership with AMD, and it's facilitated by Reliance Infosystems as the delivery partner. I am Oladoke Shalom, a DevOps engineer, and I'm joined by my colleagues that have been earlier introduced. They'll be providing insights into our discussion today. At any point during the course of the workshop, you're free to signify and raise your hands if you have questions or clarifications, and you can unmute and speak. If you would prefer to drop your questions in the chat window, you can do so, and my colleagues are available to fully answer any questions that you might have. Throughout this workshop, we aim to empower you with the knowledge and skills necessary to transition your on-premise Red Hat Enterprise Linux-based workloads seamlessly to Azure. By the end of this workshop today, our aim is to help you recognize the advantage of migrating to Azure, as well as understand the prerequisites for a successful migration in order for you to comprehend the migration process at a strategic level. Moreover, would help you acquire practical experience with tools and services and are essential for assessing your workload readiness, would help you estimate the cost and complexity involved in migration. And we hope that you would be able to engage in migration-related tasks and learn to conduct post-migration activities that would ensure that your Red Hat Enterprise Linux-based workloads are optimized, are secure, and are efficiently managed within Azure. So for today, our agenda is outlined here. The lecture is divided into 4 sections. There's the prerequisite, there's the introduction and high-level migration process. Under that, we have the prerequisite and setup and an accompanying lab exercise. And then the next agenda is assessment and business case with its accompanying lab exercise. The next agenda is migrating systems. Under that, you'll be looking at migrating workloads. And for the last lecture, we'll be talking about post-migration and supporting services. Under here, you'll be looking at the post-migration activities that are performed after you've migrated your workload to Azure. And to sum up, we would have a summary and a workshop wrap-up at the end of the session. All right, so what do we hope to cover in this particular section? We would help you understand the benefits of migrating to Azure. We would help you to gain a brief overview of the cloud adoption framework. You would understand the high-level migration process that is involved in moving your on-premise Red Hat Enterprise-based workload to Azure. Hosting your infrastructure on an on-premise environment can be quite challenging because of the requirements of having qualified personnel and complex networking problems. Organizations usually should rather focus on achieving their business goals rather than wasting time on racking and stacking, patching of software and other time-consuming IT management chores. Here listed are the challenges that are common in the on-prem environment. We have the scalability issue where it is very difficult for you to scale in and scale out. You want to increase your CPU percentage. You find it difficult to do that on-prem. It's not very easy for you to scale up and scale down your memory usage. We come to agility, the ability for you to work anywhere, the ability for you to provision your resources anywhere in the world to have improved latency. This is a challenge. Another challenge is like the one I mentioned earlier, skills challenge, to find capable hands that are qualified to maintain and manage your on-prem environment can be very tasking. Then there is the security aspect. When it comes to security on the on-prem environment, businesses usually find it challenging because the hackers, cyber attacks, they keep inventing new ways of trying to get access into your environment. And it's not very easy being proactive and staying ahead of the curve. So I'll be introducing you to the cloud migration and modernization journey. And specifically, we'll be talking about how Azure helps solve this particular problem. When it comes to the scalability issue, Azure allows you to scale up your servers according to your needs. So you notice you have more traffic during a particular period of the year. You can easily scale up and scale down to suit your business needs, your business requirements. When it comes to agility, Azure provides you a flexible platform that enables you to innovate with cloud operations and platforms. You can access your environments, like I said, from anywhere in the world. It doesn't matter the location where you are. You can have your environment hosted in another region, another geographical region, and you also have the tools that are required for you to be able to manage these resources. And when it comes to cost efficiency, Azure offers you what we call a pay for what you make use of subscription model. And I believe this speaks to improving the ROI of your business investment. So Azure allows you to scale costs and adjust your demand we eliminate the need for server maintenance, and we drive down cost. So when it comes to you hosting your workloads on the on-prem environment, you will find out that there are usually some operational costs that are fixed. So it does not matter the number of servers you have to pay your power bill, you have to pay your staff bill, whether there is increased workload or not. It does not matter. Those are capital expenditure that you have to make. And Azure offers you the ability for you to reduce this and increase your cost efficiency. When it comes to security, Azure offers you the ability to migrate your workload and enhance, improve operational efficiency. So when it comes to cost efficiency, there is no downtime. We offer you what we call Azure hybrid benefits. So say, for example, you have some licenses in your on-prem environment. When you migrate to Azure, you can bring those licenses, and those will reduce the cost. Those will reduce the amount, the particular amount you get to pay to host your workloads on the environment. There are things like reserved instances where you can reserve your resources for like 3 years and pay upfront. And when you do that, you save costs. Those are the benefits that you get from using Azure. Yeah, the typical characteristics and challenges when you come to the on-premise Red Hat Enterprise Linux-based workloads, here are the benefits of making use of those workloads. When I say Red Hat Enterprise Linux-based workloads, I mean your web servers, I mean your database servers, I mean your application servers, your file servers, whatever have you. These are usually workloads that require high performance. They require you to have a very reliable environment. They require you to have an environment that is secure for you to host your workloads, and then they have low latency. So you have high throughput with workloads like this. So cloud migration comes to mind. And if you look at the statistics shown before us, on the right side, you would notice that business leaders are increasingly looking to fuel innovation with cloud native services, and they're looking to be AI ready. If you look at these particular statistics, you would see that about 90% of new apps will be embedded with AI by the year 2025. Yeah, here's a prediction that by the year 2025, about 90% of new apps, new innovations, new business applications that will be built would be embedded with AI. We're better to get your AI readiness checked than the cloud. We are innovating for the future. Another statistic shows us that about 95% of new initiatives will be cloud native by 2025. It shows us that not only is the world moving towards AI, but also moving towards the cloud. And majority of all the applications now are being moved to the cloud because of the efficiencies, the improvements, the features that it offers. About 45% of all IT spends will be on cloud by 2026. And this shows us that we're moving to an era where you do not have to manage your resources completely by yourself. Focus on your business goals, focus on achieving your business needs, and would help you manage those particular services. On the left side, we would see these are the challenges that we solve in Azure. We look at from this page, you see about 82% of breaches involve human error. And so we would help you manage your cyber risk and evolving compliance. So for example, you have your on-premise environment, a particular engineer forgot to shut down a server or to make an IP private or something like that. Human errors can lead to data breaches and all those things. All these are what we abstract, and you do not have to take care of all this kind of risk when you move to the cloud. We help you offset costs and outmaneuver recessions, like I mentioned earlier, the cost efficiency that comes with hosting your environment in the cloud. And we also give you a plethora of tools for you to work with. So migrating to Azure, it's the part to innovate. We'll be looking at this particular agendas where you maximize your ROI, have unmatched performance and resilience, have a comprehensive code to cloud security for you to be ready to innovate for the future. All right, Azure offers you the desired outcomes that you want. And what are your desired outcomes? You, as an engineer, when you're hosting your workloads on Red Hat Enterprise Linux environment, you would help you maximize your ROI. What do I mean by maximizing your ROI? will give you options like Azure Hybrid benefits, reserved instances, like I mentioned earlier, where you get to reserve certain resources and get a discounted cost of it. Now, so if you are supposed to pay for say $10 for a particular virtual machine per month, and you reserve that particular virtual machine for the next 3 years, then you get to pay a discounted price. These are the benefits that Azure affords you. It increases your rate of return on your investment in the cloud. We provide you with unmatched performance and resilience. And you would notice that Azure has more data centers than AWS and Google Cloud Platform combined. And so this gives you the plethora of options for you to choose your redundancy options. It gives you resilience. So it does not matter if there is an catastrophic event in a particular region, your workloads are still safe and secure somewhere. The performances, the SLAs that are given to you ensure that you have 99.9% availability. Now, when it comes to comprehensive code to cloud security, Azure offers you the ability right from where you are building your code to pushing your code to your repos, to deploying them to the cloud. There's a comprehensive pipeline. There are cloud native security solutions that ensure that you have very compliant development systems. And to sum it up, the AI ready. Azure has a lot of AI services, Azure Cognitive Services, that Azure Open AI services, because of our partnership with giants in the AI sector, like OpenAI, our partnership with NVIDIA and AMD, and all these are what help us to be AI ready. So understanding migration and modernization. When it comes to migrating or modernizing your applications, your data, your infrastructure, there are usually two parts. You either migrate or you modernize. When you migrate, we make use of infrastructure as a service. And usually the drivers of you migrating, when I mean migrate you, I mean you are moving as is to the cloud. You're lifting your legacy applications from your on-prem environment and you're migrating them just the way they are. There are no improvements. You're just moving and shifting. And so what are the drivers of this kind of strategy? It involves maybe you have deadlines, you have threat of business models that maybe you have expiring contracts, whatever it is that would not afford you the time to really modernize. You can just lift your legacy applications, with your workloads, and move them to the cloud. When it comes to modernization, there are varieties of strategies when it comes to modernization, which will be seen in the next slide. Usually, when you're migrating, you're moving from a capital expenditure approach to an operational expenditure approach, where you do not have to spend on acquiring hardwares and acquiring different kinds of equipment. You're moving to an operational kind of model where we talk about you're paying for what you're making use of. So to the next slide, where we'll talk about the migration. We'll talk about the cloud adoption framework overview. And this is a map, a guideline from Microsoft to show you how to accelerate your cloud adoption journey. Today, we would be focusing on the adoption part, where we'll talk about the migration part, the innovation and modernization aspect. That is where this workshop focuses on. All right, so let's get ourselves familiar with the recommended customer journey from your on-prem environment to Azure. We have three stages where you can move. We have the pre-move, the during move, and the post-move stage. Now, the activities that are usually performed in the pre-move stage involves discovery. Here, you gather your IT estate details. You perform access. So we check your readiness status. We check the right sizing of the resources that are suitable for your requirements, for your business needs. We'll map dependencies between applications. Maybe this application and this particular server and this particular database should be hosted in this particular region. We map those kind of dependencies, those apps that are work together. We map those dependencies in this access phase. We talk about CCO and business cases, where would help you estimate the cost requirements of moving to Azure. Here you can compare and contrast the benefits of you moving to the cloud. During the move stage, we talk about planning and we talk about planning. Here we create my landing zones for you. We create your Azure tenant and make provision other resources that are in preparation for your move. We will create an iterative plan where we would migrate your applications in waves. We move them in batches. So applications that work together will be migrated together. Now, like I mentioned earlier, we have the migrate part and then the modernize part. The migrate part, you are moving as is to cloud. But for the modernize, you are talking about upgrading your entire stack. You're talking about rebuilding or refactoring. We'll be looking at that in the next slide. During the post-move stage, the activities performed under here are optimizing your environment. Here, you are tasked with managing your workloads. So we perform governance, we perform compliance and security. You can embed AI into your applications after moving to the cloud. Yeah, so migration strategies, like I mentioned earlier, the first is rehost, which is lift and shift. Under lift and shift, we're talking about moving your applications from the on-prem environment to the cloud with no changes. There are no changes to the underlying application. So that is migration. This might be driven by maybe you have a timeline, maybe your legacy applications cannot afford maybe a new remodeling or anything like that. So you just migrate like that to the cloud. Now we have refactor and repackage. Now for the other three strategies, they are under modernize. For refactor and repackage, there will be some code changes, but not a major overhaul of the application. For re-architecture, we will be revamping the code base of the application and building it, making it more cloud native in the kind of architecture we make use of. For the rebuild phase, we have in here we are not really moving the application or doing anything to it. We're leaving it as it is and rebuilding it another application that performs the same function, rebuilding whatever resource it is on the cloud for you to take hold of improved efficiency. It gives you improved ability for you to scale up and scale down. So here we're talking about rebuilding your applications in form of microservices. Now, which strategy or strategies you would use will depend on a variety of factors that will be assessed during the early stage, which is the pre-move stage. Now, each strategy, there is no one approach to it all. It depends on the application. So we would assess the application. Does this application require remodeling for it to take advantage of the functions and the features that the cloud offers? If it does, then we can rebuild, we can re-architecture, refactor it. If you notice that, oh, this particular application, this particular workload cannot, we can just rehost that and lift and shift. So the strategies would depend on the outcome of the access stage. So what have we covered in this particular lecture? We gained an understanding of the benefits of migrating to Azure. We were introduced to the cloud adoption framework, and then we understood the high-level migration process that is involved in moving your on-premise Red Hat Enterprise Linux-based workloads to Azure. Before we dive deeper into the next part of the workshop, I would like us to pause for questions. I don't know if you can signify by raising your hands if you have questions. All right, so I believe we are following with what I'm saying. All right, so the next part of the lecture, we'll be talking about prerequisites and setup. Here we'll be covering the requirements for you to perform these tasks outside of this workshop. So we'll show you a walkthrough of the pre-configured lab environment and would provide you with resources that would further enable you to perform this migration outside of this workshop. For migrating your Hyper-VMs to Azure outside of this workshop, here are the necessary things you need to know. You first have to have like a comprehensive review of your Hyper-V migration architecture. You have to know the host requirements. You have to understand the requirements for the particular Hyper-VMs that will be migrated to Azure. Before migrating to Azure, it is recommended to assess the Hyper-VMs. However, it is not necessary. It is not compulsory. It is optional. but it is also important for you to review the requirements so that you will know the right kind of the right sizing for the resources that you'll be provisioning on the cloud. Now, so you will need to create a new project and verify that the Azure account you have has permissions for you to create a virtual machine, has necessary permissions for you to create an Azure managed disk, and also has the permission to manage failover operations for recovery service bots associated with Azure Migrate project. So the link to this particular for where you can carry out this particular review will be dropped. You can get more information on that. It will be dropped in the chat window for us. Now, to accessing the lab for the first time, the link also will be dropped in the chat section where you get to access the lab environment for this particular workshop. You click on create an account, given this is the first time you'll be making use of this platform. And it brings you to this page for you to register your name, your last name, your username and your passwords, and whatever personal details that you have, you can input into this form and click on save, and it will bring you to the next screen where it will show you a dashboard where you can redeem your training key. This training key is personalized for you to access the environment. So you can, when you come back to the enrollment page, there will be a button for you at the bottom of the screen for you to launch the lab environment when you're ready to start. So you click on launch and it opens a new window for you. And now in this new window that it opens up, there are about 3 tabs. The instructions tab, we have the resources tab, and the help tab. Under the instructions tab, you will find the scenarios, you'll find the objectives of the lab session, you'll find the duration, and you'll find the instructions that are needed for you to have a successful lab exercise. Under the resource tab, we will provide you with your usernames and your passwords for you to sign in into the lab environment. Now, returning to the lab environment. After the workshop, if you feel like coming back to the lab environment for you to still carry out more exercises, more tests, more practice, you can come back now. Instead of creating an account, you would be signing in into the lab, into the scalable lab platform. And here you would input your username and password and click on sign in, and then it takes you to the particular launch environment where you can start up your lab environment. All right, so what have we covered in this section of the workshop? We have gained an understanding of the required prerequisites that are needed to perform this task outside of the workshop. We've seen a walkthrough of the pre-configured lab that we'll be making use of in the later parts of this workshop. And we've provided you with links to get other information on migration. So we'll be moving on to the next phase of the lecture. I'll be introducing Ayobami Teogbadi. He's also a DevOps expert, and he will be taking you through the next session. Over to you, Ayobami.
So once again, my name is Ayobami Teogbadi, and I welcome you to this workshop once again, proudly sponsored by AMD in collaboration with Microsoft. In this section of the presentation, I'll be taking us through an overview of the Azure Migrate Discovery and Assessment tool and how to generate a business case. Now, in the course of this question, like my other colleague has mentioned, if at any point you have any question, please feel free to raise your hand or drop the question in the comment section for appropriate response. Now, by the end of this presentation, it is expected that you should have gained an understanding of how to make use of the Azure Migrate Discovery and Assessment tool, assess your workload readiness for migration to the cloud, alongside knowing the various capabilities that the tool offers you, including building a business case for your migration. Now, from the benefits of the Azure Migrate tool is that it offers you an agentless discovery of your software inventory, your on-premises infrastructures, like your servers, your databases, your web applications, your container orchestration engines, and it's also a tool that could be extensible. Now, there are various ways of importing your infrastructures. You can actually even do this via a CSV file if the appliance could not be gotten to your infrastructure. And this particular tool offers you a wide range of benefits, including allowing you to view a comprehensive overview of the total cost of ownership. It gives you the flexibility to incorporate your migration and modernization scenarios. It covers a range of operating system and programming languages stack, and generates some dependencies for all your infrastructure as a whole. Now, the Azure Migrate tool works in three phases. The first phase is the discover phase. And in this phase, the first thing you do is to get the Azure Migrate appliance onto your source environment. It could be a vCenter server, it could be a virtual machine environment, it could be other cloud infrastructures, and it could also be your on-premises infrastructure. Now, this appliances is able to discover a range of infrastructures, from databases to applications to your software inventories to your container orchestrations, as mentioned earlier. And outside the discovery of your current infrastructure, this tool can also collect performance metrics and also generate dependency analysis for all your workloads in preparation for them to be migrated to Azure. And at the end of this, you have the opportunity to view the inventory and the roles of all these dependencies across your different servers. Now, the next stage of the Azure Migrate tool is the assessment phase. And in this phase, after the Azure Migrate tool must have done the collection of data, in the assessment phase, it helps you to perform a readiness check on your infrastructure. That's the Azure suitability. Then also makes recommendation of right size infrastructures, like right size deployments or workloads on Azure. This is to ensure that you have the best SLA, the best um, total cost of ownership and return on investment, taking into consideration your cost estimates and budget for your business. Now, this is an overview of how the Azure Migrate business case looks like. It's an easy to use, a very comprehensive tool that helps you to build business proposal and understand how Azure can bring the most value to your business. It gives you an overview of the return on investment for all your workloads. This tool highlights the total cost of ownership of your infrastructures on premises as collected in the discovery phase. It gives you an overview of the financial analysis, resource-based utilization, enables you to also adjust the scenarios as appropriate based on your requirements and SLA for your business. Now, on this page, in the Azure Migrate tool, you also have an opportunity to also view the infrastructures that could be decommissioned. It also gives you a report of the potential cost savings by leveraging the Azure hybrid benefit, gives you an overview of year-on-year basis, like the cash flow savings that your business can leverage on over the years after your migration to Azure. All these are contained in the business case, and going forward, you also have an opportunity to have this cost side by side, your on-premises cost and your the potential cost you incur when you migrate to Azure. You have it on the other side for you to be able to do a more effective and efficient comparison. Now, the report covers, like I mentioned earlier, the report covers both the on-premises footprint and the workload recommendation to Azure. Now, this workloads includes the infrastructures as a service. Those are your virtual machines, your database servers, your Hyper-V workloads, and a host of other infrastructures that you have. Being a comprehensive tool, it also goes further to include the workloads that are modernized or that could be modernized on your environment. That is based on the inventory assessment that has been carried out on your premises workload. You have recommendations for modernization, And the Azure Migrate tool also gives you an overview of the cost, what could be decommissioned, what could be modernized, and those includes your web applications, your SQL Server instances, and a host of other resources. Now, going forward, the Azure Migrate tool is a tool that works on any platform. It works on any cloud provider, even outside Azure, works with VMware Hyper-V on physical servers. I mentioned it is an agentless discovery and assessment tool, meaning that you don't have to install the appliance on every server or every workload that you have on your environment. This tool also gives you an optimal cost, takes cost into consideration, ensures that you have a total cost of ownership and return on investment, and also enables you to have a visual dependency analysis of all your infrastructures across the different workloads. Like mentioned, it's a comprehensive tool, and this is like the landing page for the Azure Migrate tool that details the mode. It works in different modes. You can choose to migrate or create business cases for servers, database, and web applications, or you can choose to create a business case for database alone, or you can also explore the migration strategies that Azure offers you. Now, in the course of the Anson Lab, later in the course of this workshop, we are going to take you through how to generate these business cases. So in summary, the Azure Migrate is a comprehensive tool that works in three phases. The first phase is the discover phase, and this is where you deploy the Azure Migrate appliance on your environment. Then thereafter, the appliance goes further to do a detailed analysis, analyzing the performance of your Windows and Linux servers. Then it's also group these servers and perform assessment to determine how suitable they are for migration, recommends the right sizing equivalent, and also does the dependency mapping, and also takes, very important, it takes into consideration appropriate cost planning to ensure that you save cost as much as possible. Then the second phase is the assessment phase before you now move to migration. And basically, after you have generated these business cases, you can start your replication to a test replication. Then thereafter, you can now proceed to do the main migration to production. All this is to ensure that there is minimal data loss and downtime to your business, close to zero data loss. And to wrap up this section of the presentation, this slide presents you the report of the discovery phase, and you see the inventories rightly listed here, sample inventory of softwares and the servers that has been discovered. Then this is like a template of an assessment page that lists your infrastructures, those that could be decommissioned, those that could be modernized, the infrastructures that could be migrated, and the associated cost could also be deeper. Then the last page slide here shows you like a workflow where you can track the different stages of your migration. So the first phase details the sorry about that, details the replication. Then you can also, when you get to the phase of the test migration, you see the details of the migration process. And the last phase is where you do the migration to the production, as the production workload. This gives you an opportunity to monitor every phase of your transition to the cloud. This in turn ensures you a very seamless and very excellent migration of your on-premises infrastructures or your estate to Azure Cloud. At this point, I like to pause for questions if we have any. Okay, in the absence of no question, the next presentation would be taken by my colleague, and that is Kingsley David, which is going to be on migrating servers to Azure Virtual Machine. I think before then we should be having a short break, a coffee break before then. So thank you everyone for listening.
All right. Good morning, everyone. My sincerest apologies. I seem to be experiencing some hardware difficulties as since like my camera is not coming up. I do hope you can hear me. So good morning once again. Welcome back from the break. My name is Kingsley David. I'm a cloud infrastructure engineer with Reliance Info Systems, and I'll be taking you through this workshop where we'll be looking at migrating your servers to Azure virtual machines. So I would like to point out that this workshop is being sponsored by AMD in collaboration with Microsoft. And I'd also like to add that during the course of my presentation, if you do have any questions or concerns, please feel free to put them in the chat box and they'll be properly addressed. So speaking about migrating your servers to Azure Virtual Machine, it covers the process of migrating your on-premise servers or your servers hosted in other platform or environments to the Azure Virtual environment. And this usually involves a structured process, that involves various specific stages and computation criteria, which are used to evaluate the readiness of your servers for migration to Azure. And the steps and its various associated parameters are being leveraged by the Azure assessment tool to provide you with outputs that are gotten from the assessment process so that you'd be able to better account for your server workloads. So among the steps that the assessment tool provides you is the Azure readiness stage. So here, the assessment tool assesses various parameters of your VM to determine their readiness for migration to Azure. And it takes into consideration parameters such as your boot type, the number of cores, as well as the amount of RAM that your server workloads, your Linux machines or your Windows machines are currently running on. It also takes into consideration storage disk configurations of your server workloads, your networking settings, as well as the operating systems. And here you get an output. The assessment tool provides you with an output that provides you with insights into the readiness of your server workloads to be migrated to the Azure cloud environment. Also, you have another stage. So this stage is the sizing stage. Here, the assessment process evaluates the sizing requirements of your server workloads for your migration to Azure. So here, it takes into consideration the various sizing characteristics of your source servers. So this includes your storage requirements, your networking configuration, as well as the compute resources of your server workloads. And you get an output that includes recommendations for your Azure VM sizes that aligns with the source VM's requirements, as well as your storage disk configuration. And finally, we have the monthly cost estimate stage. So this stage, the assessment process provides you with a monthly cost estimate, which calculates the estimated monthly cost that is associated with you running those recommended Azure VMs within the cloud environment. And here the tool considers the various sizes that you have opted for. It also takes into consideration if you have on-premise licenses with software assurance. Also, you factor in if you've opted for reserved instances. It also factors in your VM uptime, the location you've specified to have your virtual machines hosted in, as well as if you opted for Azure Hybrid benefits for your Windows operating systems. And you get an output, as I mentioned, so it provides you with that monthly cost estimate or monthly estimated cost for your storage, as well as your compute workloads. So with these stages and computation criteria, your organization will be able to assess their VM's readiness for migration to Azure, as well as look towards determining the appropriate VM sizes that they'll be leveraging the cloud, as well as get insight into the estimated cost for you to be able to run those server workloads in the cloud. And you'd agree that by following this structured process, your organization will be able to make an informed decision, as well as effectively plan for your migration to Azure. Also, with the Azure VM assessment tool, it offers you a high degree of customization capabilities, where you have that flexibility to customize the tool to meet the diverse needs of your organization. So if you're looking to plan your migration and you're looking to carry out or weigh in on various migration options, the tool offers you that flexibility where you could leverage it to say you want to carry out an assessment for you want to carry out multiple assessments for the same servers. So you could leverage on its flexibility to allow you to evaluate those various migration options, as well as select the most suitable one based off your business requirements. Also, the tool provides you with the customization flexibility, where you could account for the target location where you'd want your servers to be hosted in the cloud. Also, you can enjoy its flexibility and leverage on it to choose between the various storage options that will best meet your business needs. Also, it provides you with that flexibility to choose or opt for reserved instances, where you could take advantage of the significant cost savings option that Azure provides you if you decide to make that commitment over a 1 or 3 year term. Also, you can specify with the tool, you could specify if you'd want the various VM series you'd want. So you could use this to, factor in your compute power, the memory of your servers, as well as the specialized hardware capabilities of your servers, so as to, best select the VM series or VM sizes that will best meet your server needs. Also, you could leverage this customization flexibility to customize your sizing criteria based on your workload requirements. Also, you could look towards doing this based off your server performance expectations, or if you have some budget constraints, you could factor this into your sizing criteria for the server workloads in the cloud. Also, your historical performance data can be integrated into the assessment tool, so as to help you analyze your various workload patterns. You can also identify your resource utilization trends, as well as optimize your VM sizing, as I mentioned earlier. Also, the tool provides you with a comfort factor. So with this, it can be applied on your workloads, your server workloads, on your Linux server workloads, so as to cater for those unexpected spike in your resource demand. So this helps you to provide that, I'd say helps you to provide that buffer to help you prevent against your, say, performance problems that you might be facing on premise. Also, the assessment tool can consider your VM uptime requirements. So it takes into account your server availability, as well as high business hours. So it helps, it takes this into account to help you optimize costs, as well as cater for proper resource allocation. Also, with its flexibility capabilities, you can specify the currency in which you'd want your costing to be estimated in, right? So it allows you to accurately carry out proper financial planning, as well as budgeting for the entire migration process. Also, with this tool, you tend to get various offers, various discounts, subscriptions, as well as Azure hybrid benefits. So with these various pricing options, discounts, subscription, and the likes, you can then factor into the assessment your various cost savings options and plans that you'd want to maximize. So you could see that with these various customization options that the migration assessment tool provides you, it then empowers your organization, right, to be able to tailor their migration plans to see your specific business needs, your preferences, as well as your budget. So it enables you, as I mentioned, to make that informed decision, as well as ensure that you carry out a successful migration of your workload, which aligns with your organization goals and objective. So next, we'll be looking at discovering, assessing, and migrating your Hyper-V servers. So this starts off from the discovery process. So it typically involves those various steps that are in that, identifying your server workloads within your source environment. And in this case, that would be your Hyper-V servers. So like I mentioned, it starts off from you deploying the Azure Migrator plans within the source environment, the source Hyper-V environment. So their plan serves as a connector between your on-premise Hyper-V host and the Azure cloud. So once their plans is being deployed within the source environment, then their plans need to be configured, and you need to establish that connectivity between the Hyper-V host and the Azure Migrate service. So that serves as a bridge, that connects the bridge between the Azure Migrate service and your Hyper-V host on-premise. So once this is done, that with the plans in place and configured, then it begins that process of discovering your servers, your Linux servers, your Windows servers, right? So it begins that process of discovering your servers and their configurations within the Hyper-V environment. So here, the appliance collects, information about your server hardware configurations, your operating systems, installed software, as you saw in previous slides, the inventory. It also provides you with, it also pulls data as to those relevant details for better insights into your server specifications and configurations. Also, once the delivery process is complete, the discovered servers and their configurations are then made visible within the Azure Migrate project dashboard. And from this point, you can then access the Azure Migrate portal, project portal, to view the list of discovered servers, as well as those detailed and performance metrics that the Azure Migrate tool has pulled. So it gives you that provides you with that centralized insight into the server landscape of your Hyper-V environment, as well as help you to understand, gives you that better understanding of the scope of the migration project, as well as help you to plan accordingly. So here is an architectural illustration of the discovery process for your Hyper-V servers using the Azure Migrate tool. So as I mentioned in the previous slides, it starts off your Hyper-V host. So the process begins with your Hyper-V host, which runs your various server workloads. It could be your Linux and your Windows server, and where their data is being stored. So as you can see, the Azure Migrator plans collects the configuration and performance data from the Hyper-V host via the Windows Remote Management port. And once this is done, the data collected from the Hyper-V host is then sent to the Azure Migrator plans for it to be processed. And the processed data is then securely transmitted to the Azure Migrate portal via the HTTPS port, which is the port 443. So this just ensures that the data being transferred is encrypted, as well as being secure. So once the data reaches the Azure Migrate portal, it is then analyzed and then made available for further actions, such as assessment and migration, as we spoke about earlier. And the Azure Migrate just helps in visualizing, providing you with that visuals, as well as helping you to plan for the migration of your VMs or your servers to the cloud. So finally, as you can see on the screen, the discovered servers that are being pulled from the Hyper-V host are then listed in the Azure Migrate portal. So this just allows for a detailed assessment, as well as migration planning. So also with the migration assessment tools, you can carry out dependency analysis for your server workload. So this covers the process that helps you to understand that relationship or interaction between the different applications and services that are running within your source environment. So here we'll be looking at your VMware environment. So in the case where you have server workloads running within your VMware environment, you could carry out it could be your VMware environment, it could be your Hyper-V environment, right? You could carry out dependency analysis for you to be able to understand that relationship between the application and services running within your environment. So also, it also starts off with you, deploying the Azure Migrator plans into the source environment, whichever environment that is, and this serves as a bridge, as I mentioned, between the on-premise infrastructure and the Azure cloud. So with their plans being deployed and configured, then the process of discovering your servers begins, where it pulls those server configurations as well as the applications within your VMware or Hyper-V environment. And after the discovery process, is complete, then your users can then enable the dependency analysis for your servers from the Azure portal. So these steps just initiate the process of identifying as well as mapping those dependencies between your servers and your various applications. So this service helps you to utilize the data collected from your server configuration, specifications, your applications, those performance metrics. So it uses this to establish that relationship and dependency across your servers. So once the dependency analysis is enabled, then you can view the application inventory. You could view the roles of your servers as well as those dependencies across your Hyper-V or VMware environment from the Azure portal. So with this, it provides you with that comprehensive understanding of the relationship between the different components and applications within your VMware environment, as well as help you to facilitate your migration planning, as well as ensure the integrity of your application. So also, the assessment provides you with computations for right sizing. So this just involves you collecting, analyzing various performance data to help determine the appropriate sizing recommendations for your Azure resources. So the process also begins with initiating the discovery phase, where the Azure Migrate appliance is deployed and configured within your source environment. Like I mentioned, it could be your Hyper-V environment, it could be your VMware environment. You can also carry this out for your physical servers as well. So from this point, the Azure Migrate appliance then collects the performance data points from the servers or the VMs at regular intervals, and these data points could include metrics such as your CPU utilization. It could be your memory usage, your disk input and output, as well as your network traffic. So from this point also, the collected performance data points are then transmitted to Azure at those predefined intervals. So this transmission intervals just ensure that the data is regularly updated as well as made available for analysis in the Azure portal. And then the Azure Market Appliance then identifies those peak data points within the collected performance data. And the peak data point identified by the Azure Market Appliance are then being transmitted to the Azure data store. So these peak data points just represent these maximum resource utilization levels that are observed for each metric during the assessment period. Like I mentioned, with the customization and ability of the tool gives you that comfort factor where you could take this into account, those maximum resource utilization levels of your server workloads. So from this point, the transmitted peak data points are then sorted in ascending order for the right sizing computations of your servers. So this just helps you to provide that measure for your workload peak demands. So you could see that with this process, the Azure Migrate plans can, then accurately analyze the performance characteristics of your servers or your virtual machines, and then it could recommend those appropriate Azure VM sizes based off your resource requirement. And this is just ensuring that the organization can optimize the resource utilization as well as minimize the cost, minimize your costing when you're looking to migrate your workloads to Azure. All right, so thank you, everyone. Over to you, Rafael.
Hi, everyone. My name is Rafael Kyoko. It's a pleasure to have you all on the call. I'll be taking you through the migrating systems. And this workshop is courteously sponsored by AMD in sponsorship with Microsoft. Once we have the assessment ready, and you've done all the assessment of your infrastructure and understood the workloads that you want to migrate. So the next step comes to migration. So it involves a couple of tasks that we need to do. So in this section, you're going to cover the understanding the concept of replication, and also importance of conducting a test migration and understanding the final step of migration and different scenarios that you are going to do during migration. So as migration is not a continuous, it's not a straightforward process. It involves a couple of stages of process that you need to undertake to ensure smooth migration of your workloads to Azure. So you'll be following this process during our lab sessions that is going to come up, and we're going to start with the for migration to start. We begin with the replication. That's enabling replication part. So replication is the process of copying data from one location to another. In this context, we'll be replicating our on-premise rail-based workloads to Azure, and replication is copying this data from on-premise machine to the Azure cloud. So before migration, you must ensure that the on-premise machines comply with the Azure virtual machine requirements for operating system architecture, disks, network settings, and VM naming. And that's where the assessment stage comes in before the migration. So this will ascertain that your workloads are cloud ready, and they have been right-sized with the specifications that will be required for the applications to be running on the cloud, and then set up a landing zone. So this is where you have the necessary requirements to host these workloads on the cloud. This is setting up virtual networks. If you have connections to their on-premise, maybe setting up site-to-site connection or a VPN tunnel to your on-premise network, and also setting up a storage account. This is primarily used as a cache storage to copy data to the cloud. And typically, Azure Migrate is the tool that is being used to migrate these workloads. And the migration can be in two ways, either using an agent or an agent-based migration, agentless migration. So with the agentless is with migrating your workloads without necessarily installing agents to the targeted machines that you want to replicate. That's the agentless. And with the agent is where you typically install agents to the targeted machines that you want to replicate, which will be responsible to communicate with the Azure Migrate appliance for the process of migration. So as from this chart, from what you can see here, the first step of migration is to enable replication. So once you have discovered the servers and performed the assessment, you'll need to select enable replication. So this will be copying and syncing data from on-premise to the cloud. Then you have the initial replication. This is the initial syncing of data. Just typically that's the replication process of copying the data, what you have, the OS, the disk or the data disk and the OS disk, and all the application components that are on your on-premise environment to the cloud. Then the data replication is the subsequent replications that happens in case there are any changes that are being made, any new data that is being written, or modifications of data that you have on your on-premise. The same synchronization happens to the cloud. Then after the initial replication is completed, then we have to initiate the test migration, which we'll also look at in the next part of the slide. So, and understand the importance of test migration. Once you've tested and validated the test environment, the next step is to perform a cleanup of the test migration. So this is basically just removing the data, the cleanup, the test data from the cloud. then doing the final migration and the cutover. That's completely failing over to the cloud environment and stopping the replication and users to automatically be routed to the cloud workloads. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to drop them on the chat section, and our team will respond during this presentation. So now let's look at the test migration. So test migration is an important step in the migration process. So a test migration typically creates a test copies of replicated servers in a sandbox environment, Azure sandbox environment, and it is intended to help and validate servers and app functionalities. A key point to note is that test migration is not disruptive to the source server. So whatever you do on your test environment doesn't affect your production environment, and you can do all manner of tests. Typically, it's recommended that you do stress testing, load testing, testing your application functionalities if it's functioning correctly as expected, and you can do these migration multiple times. It's not limited to how many number of tests that you want to carry. So before you start the process, the first step, the migration process, the first step is to create an Azure Migrate project. Once you have the Azure Migrate project on the Azure portal, then it followed by deploying the appliance to complete the discovery of a virtual machine. So this appliance can be deployed on your on-premise environment if you have the required specifications, because there are some the appliance has some conditions, some of the requirements that it needs to have, maybe a 16 gig of RAM, 8 vCPU, and maybe around 80 gig of storage space, and it should be running on Windows Server 2022. So that's the specification. So if you have that particular requirements on your environment, you can deploy that appliance to your environment. If you have an Hyper-V, you can deploy it on your Hyper-V host or part of your Hyper-V clusters to initiate the initial discovery. If not, you can also deploy. You have the option to deploy this appliance, Azure Migrate appliance, on the Azure environment, and make sure that you have a line inside communication to your source servers. Meaning that you may have maybe a connection, maybe a site-to-site express route connection from Azure to your on-premise environment, so that you can be able to discover the servers that you intend to migrate. So once the discovery is complete, then you can configure replication. So you can choose one or more virtual machines that you need to intend to migrate or replicate to the Azure environment. So once that is done, once the synchronization of the replication process is complete, then you can perform the test environment. So with the test, once you have the test, to perform the test, you need to assign a virtual network to the test migration. That's why you need to set up the landing zone where you have your virtual network, your resource groups, all these, maybe a public IP or a private a subnet, for users to connect and perform to the server and perform the necessary test migrations. So so these are the requirements for doing the test migration. So once you've conducted the test migration, the next step is the final migration. So this comes after you've done the testing and ascertain that everything is working fine, and the traffic the traffic that your applications are pulling can still be accommodated on the Azure environment. Then you can perform the cleanup test migration, the cleanup of the test servers. So this is typically removing the replicated server that deletes the test virtual machines and prepares the replicated virtual machines for production migration. So this is important aspect because it will help reduce the costs of the test server. So you won't incur cost of continuing running these tests replication. So and it's a smooth process using a click of a button. And the Azure Migrate will automatically remove this test server and the test environment for you. So once the cleanup is finished, then you can view from the Azure Migrate the status of your replicated machines. So then you can initiate migration. So before the migration, there are certain aspects that you need to consider. One is the migration will typically prompt you to shut down your on-premise virtual machine or the source server. So this is an important aspect because it will help avoid any data loss during the process of migration, during the process of the final replication. And it's recommended that to perform the final migration, it's recommended that to be done during off-peak business hours, as the virtual machines will be down, and it you don't want to interrupt the production environment. And typically, the downtime is normally occurs in a matter of few minutes, or in a short while. And you can check the migration status as it validates the prerequisites, prepares for migration, creates Azure VMs, and then start the Azure VMs. So once if you've done the final migration, you can initiate the cutover. So this is the final step where you have the on-premise VMs stopped. Users are being routed to the cloud VMs, and they begin their final operations or continue to fail over. That's the complete failover to the cloud servers. So once you have the resources in the Azure, you can take advantage of other cloud benefits, or such as Microsoft Defender for Cloud. So this Microsoft Defender for Cloud will help you secure your migrated workloads. Then you can also enable backup. So you can secure backup of your VMs once they are failed over to the cloud. So this will help protect your data. And you can also leverage Azure Monitor, which is a special tool that collects, analyzes, and acts on telemetry data of your Azure. And you can also use the Azure Monitor on your on-premise virtual machine or on-premise machines. So let's do a recap of what we've talked about in this section. So we've understood the concept of replication, how the migration works. So typically migration is basically the replication aspect of your workloads on your on-premise environment. It's not only limited to on-premise, but also other third-party cloud, other third-party hosting platform like GCP, AWS, Zen, or any other hosting platform that you have your workloads were running on. Then we've also covered the aspect of the test migration, why it is important, and how to conduct the test migration. Then we also covered the final aspect of migration, where you have the final migration process and the different scenarios where we need to do the final migration. And yes, so at this point, if there's any questions, you're welcome to ask. In the meantime, I'd like to invite my next colleague, Enoch, to take you through the post-migration and supporting services. That comes after doing migration. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Raphael, and welcome once more, everyone, to this Red Hat Enterprise Linux Migration Workshop, a workshop sponsored by AMD in collaboration with Microsoft. So I'll be taking you through the post-migration and then supporting services bits of this workshop. And I'd like to confirm if you can see my screen. Okay, so I'd like to make this workshop as interactive as possible. For now, you can't unmute, but if you have any questions, you can drop them in the chat and my able colleagues would respond to your queries. So now, By the end of this workshop, you'll be able to understand and be able to utilize the various post-migration activities and supporting services. So what are we going to cover? We'll look at leveraging Azure hybrid benefits for Linux to reduce costs. We'll look at extending Azure management to on-premises and multi-cloud environments with Microsoft Azure Arc. We'll look at how to gain insights and monitor the capabilities of Red Hat workloads with Azure Monitor. We'll move on to look at protecting your Red Hat enterprise workloads from threats with Defender for Cloud, and also how to optimize these workloads in Azure with Red Hat Insights. Now, Azure Hybrid Benefit for Linux allows you to bring your Red Hat enterprise Linux subscriptions directly to Azure, potentially saving up to 76% when combined with a 3-year reserve instance. This benefit covers virtual machine skill sets, sport virtual machines, and custom images, which provides a comprehensive cost-saving solution with seamless support and flexibility. So by bringing your Red Hat subscriptions to Azure, you eliminate software subscriptions cost at scale, save time with post-deployment conversions, and benefit from the automatic image maintenance and updates. Now in Azure, you have two main licensing options. There's the pay-as-you-go or pay-G, and there's the bring your own subscription, which allows you to pay for resources on an hourly or monthly basis with scaling as needed. So bring your own subscription lets you use your existing Red Hat Enterprise Linux licenses on Azure virtual machines without having to purchase new ones. And after applying Azure Hybrid benefits, your virtual machines no longer incur software fees, but are charged on a bring your own subscription fee. By optimizing costs and also managing your licenses effectively, you're able to save costs with some of these licensing options available to you. Moving on with flexible licensing options that include PayG or BYOS and prepaid software plans. PayG lets you stop and start anytime, paying only for resources that you use, and the prepaid plans also offer discounts with long-term contracts. So bring your own subscription also allows you to use your existing subscriptions, which reduces upfront software costs. So together, Red Hat Enterprise Linux and Microsoft Azure provide a flexible foundation for open hybrid cloud environments, enhancing productivity, security, operations. And Red Hat Cloud also makes Red Hat Cloud Access also makes your subscriptions portable, which enables you to choose the best architecture infrastructure for your needs. Now, moving on to Azure Arc. Azure Arc enabled services or servers extend Azure's management to non-Azure virtual machines, which provides you with consistent management across several environments. So with Azure Arc, you'll be able to manage Windows and Linux physical servers and VMs hosted outside of Azure, whether you're on your corporate network or on another cloud provider. And this management experience uses standard Azure constructs such as Azure Policy, Microsoft Defender for Cloud, Azure Update Management, Microsoft Sentinel, and Azure Monitor, which allows for seamless governance, protection, configuration, and monitoring. So previously we talked about Azure Arc in the other slide, and one of the questions we get is, which management services can I use with my Arc-enabled virtual machines? So as you can see here, we have a variety of management services, all of which can be applied to your Azure Arc-enabled machines today. So when you connect your virtual machines to Azure Arc, you can perform many operational functions just as you would with native Azure virtual machines. And we'll talk about some of these things soon. So with governance, you are able to assign Azure Policy guest configurations, which allows you to audit settings inside the machine. So to understand the cost of using Azure Policy guest configurations with Azure Arc enabled servers, my colleagues will drop a link in the chat for you to review the pricing guide. You're also able to protect your non-Azure servers with Microsoft Defender for Endpoints, which is included in the Microsoft Defender for Cloud, threat protection, for vulnerability management, and to proactively monitor for threats and security events. So Microsoft Defender for Cloud also presents the alerts and remediation suggestions from threats detected. You're also able to configure using Azure Automation for frequent and time-consuming management tasks. You're able to use PowerShell and Python runbooks to assess configuration changes for installed software. Now, Microsoft provides you all these tools to be able to monitor your Windows registry and files and also your Linux daemons using change tracking inventory. Finally, let's look at monitoring. With Azure Monitor, you can monitor the operating system performance and discover application components to monitor processes and dependencies with Azure other resources. It works in collaboration with Azure VM Insights. You are also able to collect log data such as performance data and events from the operating system or other workloads running on the machine with log analytics agents. And this data is stored in what we call the log analytics workspace on Azure. Now, moving on, let's look at Microsoft Defender for Cloud. This is a comprehensive solution for cloud security posture management and cloud workload protection. It identifies vulnerabilities in your cloud configuration and enhances your security posture, and also safeguards workloads across multi-cloud and hybrid environments from evolving threats. So this solution supports multi-cloud and hybrid environments with integrating various products and to enable seamless response and automation for your SecOps teams. So for cloud security posture management for Defender Cloud, it detects and remediates security issues to enhance your security posture. It also provides hardening guidance and visibility to improve understanding of your security posture as well. You are also able to generate a secure score on first use to assess connected resources to help understand and review your compliance. It also helps you analyze and secure attack paths through Cloud Security Graph, and it has a context engine with Defender for Cloud, which maps cloud assets, connections, lateral movements, internet exposure, network connections, and other vulnerabilities that might be in play. It identifies high-risk issues for prioritized remediation through the attack path analysis, and it also offers two protection offers. There's the free, and then there's the premium. Now, moving on to Defender for Cloud for workload protection, it delivers security alerts powered by Microsoft Threat Intelligence to identify unique workload security requirements. It also provides specific security plans for various resources in your subscriptions on Azure. And for instances, it enables Microsoft Defender for Storage to alert you about suspicious activity related to your storage resources on Azure. Now, we move on to Red Hat Insights, which is a proactive and predictive analysis tool for Red Hat Enterprise Linux workloads. It provides continuous analysis to predict risks, recommend actions, and also track costs. Insights helps you enhance performance, security, and compliance costs across environments, and it offers step-by-step remediation and guidance, and also support for cybersecurity policies, which in turn simplifies your compliance and security management, and in turn reduces overall operational costs and also improves your IT efficiency. Now, Red Hat Insights also identifies and prioritizes operational and security risks. It monitors policy adherence and tracks configuration changes. It can detect outdated software, weak passwords, and misconfigured services and recommend actions to mitigate these risks. Insights is included in a Red Hat subscription in both public and on-prem or private clouds. It enhances your security and operational efficiency. So some examples of configuration issues that it can identify are the three that have been listed on your screen. And with outdated software here, it detects where a user is running outdated software versions that may have known vulnerabilities, and it can recommend upgrading to a newer version or patching the software. With weak passwords, it can detect when a user is using weak passwords that can easily be guessed or compromised, and it can then recommend using stronger passwords or implementing multi-factor authentication. Now, with misconfigured services, lastly, let's look at that. It allows you to set up services that you've probably misconfigured in the right way, which prevents attackers to exploit vulnerabilities or gain unauthorized access to your system. So these are the things that Red Hat Insights can assist you with. For further reading, I'll be sharing a link in the chat, and you can review that shortly. Now, with Azure Monitor, it's our approach to observability, and it's centered on simplicity. So we understand from our customers that having monitoring available out of the box is crucial. And with Azure Monitor, you can easily get started with samples and recommendations, including effective alerts, optimal queries, and customizable reports. It is designed to handle thousands of terabytes of data per day, and it's a very robust data platform that ensures that you can monitor your largest production workloads reliably. Azure Monitor also extends through Azure Arc, which provides the flexibility to support Azure on-premises data centers, your edge devices, and your multi-cloud environments. It also offers seamless monitoring across Azure and Edge observability at any level across the stack, an open and extensible platform for innovation and enterprise readiness for mission-critical scenarios. So moving on, we have here Azure Advisor, and it is your personalized guide to Azure best practices once you move your workloads from on-prem to Microsoft Azure. And it helps you optimize your Azure resources for cost, security, reliability, performance, and operational excellence. So Azure Advisor provides recommendations, alerts, and digests to minimize your Azure or maximize, your Azure investments and protect your resources and also enhance responsiveness. You can also increase your uptime with Azure Advisor and improve your workflow efficiency overall. Now, moving on, let's look at Red Hat Ansible automation on the Azure platform. Now, with the Ansible automation platform on Azure, it automates IT resource management across the cloud, on-premises, and then edge environments. It's deployable directly from the Azure Marketplace, and it integrates with Azure Arc to enhance capabilities across network, security, ITSM, services and workflow, monitoring, and analytics. This platform also helps achieve operational efficiency and flexibility quickly and effectively. And Microsoft has been working tirelessly with Red Hat to improve upon this service, and it's available in the Azure Marketplace if you want to use this. So to sum up, what have we looked at today in the session of post-migration activities? We've covered Azure Hybrid Benefits for Linux. We've looked at the key features of Azure Arc for Red Hat Enterprise workloads. We've looked at insights and monitoring with Azure Monitor. We've also looked at threat protection with Defender for Cloud. And we finally touched on optimizing with Red Hat Insights. All these tools and services help you manage your Red Hat Enterprise workloads efficiently and securely in the Azure environment. If you have any questions, kindly put them in the chats, and our assist or my able assistants will also respond to your queries. Now, without wasting much time, we'll dive into the lab session. And towards the end of the lab session, the hands-on lab, environments would be made available to you as well to practice. And this will be available for 24 hours for you to also try your hands to migrate some workloads, Red Hat Enterprise workloads to Azure. So if there are no questions, let's take a 10-minute break. And after that, we'll dive into the lab session. All right, welcome back everyone, and thank you all for staying with us. So quickly dive into the lab session, and I'll also be dropping the link for participants to begin creating their scalable accounts. And towards the end of this lab, or right after it, we'll share a key with you to be able to continue with the lab at your own pace after this workshop. So find the link in the chat and begin creating your accounts on Scalable. So kindly give me a thumbs up if you can see my screen. Lovely. Okay. So let's begin. We have here a Hyper-V host. And in there, okay, I see a hand up. Is there a question from Adekunle? You can drop your question in the chat if there's any question. Okay, so let's quickly move on. We have here a Hyper-V host that contains 2 virtual machines, and these virtual machines represent the Red Hat Enterprise Linux servers that we hope to lift and shift to Microsoft Azure. And for this session, I'll be taking you through how to first discover the virtual machines on your on-prem, either in your Hyper-V host or your bare metal servers in your on-premises, and how to perform a total cost of ownership and compare and contrast how much it would cost you to run your workloads on Azure compared to your on-premises, data center. And from there, I'll hand over to my colleague Raphael to walk you through the actual migration process. So to begin, let me first connect to a database VM. And over here, we want to make sure that the prerequisites are installed. So here you want to make sure that you have the Hyper-V utility installed on this virtual machine. That will make sure that that virtual machine can take the full advantage and capabilities of Hyper-V. And then we'll go on to install a monitoring agent for when you finally move your workloads to Microsoft Azure, that you'll be able to monitor them with ease using the Azure Insights and Log Analytics workspace and so on. So I'll log into this virtual machine now. And what we want to do here is that we want to make sure that the Hyper-V integration services are installed to take full advantage of Hyper-V. So do that with the command ls-mod prep Hyper-V utils. So we can confirm that it's indeed installed. If not, you would install it. You have to install the Hyper-V utility. And then you move on to the next step, where we have to install an Azure Linux agent to make monitoring easy once we migrate our workloads to Azure. So we do that with the command sudo yum install wa Linux agents. Try. So while this is going on, we'll do same for the other workloads that we intend to migrate to Azure. In this case, we'll move on to our second virtual machine, which is our web VM that has our web application that we are looking to migrate to Azure. So over here, I'm going to do the same thing for this web VM. Make sure that we have the Hyper-V utility installed in it, and then move on with the next steps. Once that is confirmed, we want to install the Azure Linux agent to make monitoring easy. Okay, so while it does that, we want to also confirm if our web VM has an IP address that we can check locally just to verify if the application we have hosted on it is running as it should. So I'll make a mental note of this IP address, and then we'll check if it's accessible. Okay, so we can confirm that indeed the web application is accessible. And so we'll carry on with the next steps. So we want to make sure that the agent that we just installed on these virtual machines are running. All right, so I'm going to verify that. If you have any questions, kindly drop them in the chat. So let me just clear the screen here. Okay, so we've enabled and run it. We'll do same for the database virtual machine. Good. So once you have all the prerequisites set up, which is your Hyper-V utility, you've installed and set up the Azure Linux agent for monitoring once you move your workloads to Azure, you will then head over to the Azure portal to then begin setting up an Azure migration project. And just as you learned during the presentation sessions where we talked about what Azure Migrate does, and its benefits and why you should do an assessment. We are going to put all that into practice now in the lab environment. So we visit the Azure portal and then begin to create a project. Now, once you've landed in the Azure portal, there's usually a small tour that comes up. You can close it at this point if you encounter it. Now, what you want to be looking for is the service known as Azure Migrate. So in the search box above, you type in the Azure Migrate. Now, once you get to the Azure Migrate blade, on the left pane, under migration goals, you notice there are servers, databases, and web apps, which are indeed the things we intend to migrate to Azure today. So you tap on that, and you will notice there's currently no project created. So you tap on Create a Project to begin creating a migration project. Now, if you are doing this in a real-world environment, you might want to create a resource group, which is basically like a placeholder to hold your Azure resources. And then you just collate all the resources that are migrating to Azure there. In my case, I already created my resource group, so I'll select that. And then I'll give my migration project, a name. So let's go with this. Azure Migration Project and these numbers. Now, for geography, that's where you want to save your Azure Migration Project data. And for me, United States works. But if you have other requirements, you can choose the region specific to your organization. And once you are done, you hit Create and then wait for the Azure Migrate project to be created. Great. So now our project is created. What we want to do now is be able to discover the servers that we have running on-prem, be it a bare metal machine or be it a virtual machine running within a Hyper-V host environment or VMware, right? So to do this, under assessment tools, you tap on Discover, and then you want to use an appliance in this case. So you tap on Use Appliance to discover the workloads. And then here you are met with are your servers virtualized, right? We are going to go with yes and go with Hyper-V because our environment is a Hyper-V environment. If you have another environment, say VMware, you go with that option. If it's a physical server, or for instance, your VM is running on AWS GCP or some other hyperscaler for that matter, you can select the last option. So we'll go with Hyper-V since that is our environment. Now, once you've selected that, what you need to do here is now generate a project key. But to generate that, you need to give your appliance a name, right? And I'll just name my Hyper-V appliance this, Hyper-V with these numbers, just to let me identify it. Once I have the name, you just hit generate. Now, generation of the key could take between 5 to 10 minutes. So let's give it some time while it generates the key. And once the key is generated, you can then download your migration appliance. So for Hyper-V, you have two options, and also depending on the base OS that you are running in your virtualized environment. So for instance, if you are using Windows Server 2016 and below, it's normally ideal to go with the .phd file, which basically allows you to set up the migration appliance in a Hyper-V environment and then use that to perform your discovery and dependency analysis. Now, in my case, this Windows Server is running 2019. In this case, you can just download this zip file, which contains a number of PowerShell scripts that you can just run. And it takes a while. So for the purposes of this lab, I've already done all that and set up the migration appliance. So we just need a key to proceed. But then once you have generated your key, you go with either of these options depending on your base OS setup, and then you hit download to make use of your migration appliance. Great. So now our key, we have a project key. So then we can copy that. And once you set up the appliance in your environment, you then have a shortcut of the appliance on your machine, right? On your desktop. So let me quickly show you that here. That's the shortcut that would usually appear for you to configure your appliance. Now, in my case, I've clicked on it already. Once you click on it, it will open the appliance configuration manager page. And normally you are met with an end user licensing agreement. You just have to accept that. And once you accept that, it's going to check your connectivity to Azure, and it's going to take that, and it's going to check if your time is in sync with Azure as well. Once those prerequisites are checked green, you just paste your project key, which we got earlier from the Discover phase tab in Azure. So I'm going to go ahead and paste that in here. And then you would want to verify to authenticate the appliance with your Azure account. So we hit verify, and then we wait for it to verify the project key. And if there's an update of the appliance, it's going to do that in the background. So please be patient here when you are doing, when you are doing it in your real world environment. It could take anywhere between 10 to 15 minutes as well, depending on several factors like your connection speed, the underlying machine resources, etc. Just be patient and allow it to perform the update operation in the background, and you can proceed with the next step. So while we wait for it to complete, if you have any questions, kindly drop them in the chat and we'll attend to you. Okay, so it took a while for a new appliance update to be installed. So I hit refresh and it would proceed with a new key, and we can move on with the next steps, which is discovering the servers that we have running in Hyper-V, and then we'll carry out with the assessment and total cost of ownership. So now that our appliance is updated, we can now verify our key to authenticate with Azure and carry on with the next steps.
No, Enoch, please, you're muted if you're speaking.
Okay, I'm not speaking, but working in the background to get you the training key. So can anyone confirm if they've created the account, and then I'll share the training key for you to go through the labs as well. So can I see a thumbs up if you've been able to create the account? So if you're looking for the link, it's in the chat. You can create your lab account Great, Godwin. So I'll be sharing the key shortly, and it's limited actually. So it's on a first come, first served basis. So all our participants or workshop participants can use this key and have access to the lab environment. And it's a maximum of 20. So please redeem it. And you can even continue after the workshop, right? You have a 24-hour access to the lab environment. Now, we were waiting for our clients to update, and then we authenticate with Azure and carry on with the next steps. So over here on my screen, we can see that we've successfully updated our plans and verified our project key. So for the next step, we are going to log in. We are going to log into the platform. So you tap on login, and then you tap on copy code and login. Now this code is just for authentication in the next step. So I'm just going to paste my code in here. Before I proceed, kindly respond in the chat if you've been able to sign up and log in and also redeemed your code. You can also drop screenshots in the chat if you have access to the platform. Okay, so I'll paste my code and then we go on. This is the code we got from the appliance configuration manager page. And this allows us to authenticate our appliance with Microsoft Azure. So once you have a successful authentication, you can then close this window, and then we'll continue in the appliance configuration manager page. Okay, so trying to authenticate the appliance with Microsoft Azure could also take a while. So let's allow between 10 to 15 minutes for it to finish. And once that is done, we'll proceed with the next steps where we give it the credentials for our VMs that we intend to migrate to Microsoft Azure, and it will automatically integrate with the tools and then gather the metrics necessary for the assessments and also the discovery, and then we can carry on with the migration afterwards. So I can see only 3 successful enrollments. Kindly, if you're having challenges, drop your challenge in the chat and I can guide you through for you to enroll. All right, Ade, I see you are here. So tap on the next button at the bottom right corner, and you will notice the credentials for your virtual machine. And just tap on that, and it will enable you to log in. It's actually password to log in, and then you can proceed. So the instructions are listed out on the right, and you can follow through and work alongside us. And if you have challenges, we would assist. So that's how you get in at the Kunde. Great. So while we wait for the migration appliance to authenticate and register to Azure, I'll take any questions if you have any. If you're unable to unmute, kindly drop your questions in the chat and we will respond. If some of us are still having challenges, I'll share the link again to the labs and you can follow through, redeem your key, and then follow alongside us. But you would first have to register. So I'll carry on with the next steps. So over here, we can see that appliance is successfully registered to Microsoft Azure. And we are going to move on to the discover phase. Okay, so once you've registered your appliance and all, you would then move on to the next phase where you add your credentials. Is anyone having difficulty registering? kindly raise your hand if you're having challenges accessing the lab environment. Anis, okay. Patrick, can you allow Anis to share his screen so we assist? Okay. All right. So even after this workshop, you still have access to it for 24 hours. So I'll carry on so as not to waste a lot of time. So we are going to then proceed with the next steps where we manage credentials and then add our hosts, add our host and then the VMs within it to the migration project. So I'm going to give a friendly name, go with hypervisor, since our resources, our virtual machines are coming from the Hyper-V environment. And then I'll give the administrator account of that Hyper-V host to the migration appliance as well. So in here, I've put in the username for that Windows Server environment and then its password. If you have more, you just add them by hitting the more button. In our scenario, it's just one Hyper-V host. So we hit save and move on with the next step. Now, once we've done that, you want to provide a Hyper-V cluster details, right? So we are going to add a discovery source. And then since we are working with one discovery source, we'll just add a single item. And here you want to paste in the fully qualified domain name of your Hyper-V environment. So this is mine. And I want to map the credentials to the hypervisor, and we carry on with the next steps. It's going to validate that. After validation is successful, we can now confirm it's authenticating to Azure, and we carry on with the next step here, where we then add the credentials for the virtual machines running in a Hyper-V environment. So we have two Red Hat Enterprise Linux servers running within Hyper-V. We have a Red Hat Enterprise Linux for the database as well as the web application. And I'm going to add the credential for those two. Luckily, the credentials are the same. So in here, I'll select a Linux server. It's not joined in a domain. The friendly name for this, I'll go with Red Hat Enterprise Linux user. And the username for these VMs, as you saw me logging in before, is what I'll maintain. They actually use the same usernames. And then I'll give the password to the migration appliance as well. Now, everything being done here is safe and secure, so you need not to worry about there being a compromise to your environment. So hit save. And once you hit save, you scroll to the very bottom of the Migration Appliance Configuration Manager page, and then we begin discovery by hitting the Start Discovery button. Now, discovery could take a while depending on a number of factors as well, the number of workloads we are looking at to migrate to Microsoft Azure, network connectivity, the performance of these VMs, the Hyper-V host itself, as well as some other factors. So we'll give it time to complete the discovery. If your network is actually fast, it could complete in under 5 minutes, but let's give it, say, 5 to 10 minutes to complete. So are we all able to access the scalable platform? I see some of us are still having challenges. There are only 3 successful logins. So kindly, anyone, if you have challenges, you can put your hands up and then we would assist. So kindly redeem the enrollment key or training key if you can. Everyone on the call, kindly do that. So while we wait for discovery to complete, I'll take any questions. If you're unable to unmute, kindly drop your question in the chat and we would assist. It could be about the presentation, it could be about the demo so far, and it could be about your challenges with the lab environment. If you're unable to access it for some reason, we can come in and assist you. So over here, I'm able to see that Adekunle has access, Godwin, and then sorry if I just butchered your name, I'm sorry. So kindly, all participants, try and redeem your lab key, just so that you can have a practical feel of what we are doing here. Okay, so while we wait for it to discover, let's go ahead and create a business case on Azure, okay? Now, the business case allows you to then compare the cost of moving to Azure versus the cost of running your workloads on premises. So I'll tap on the Azure Migrate Service and Web Apps link. It's going to bring us back here to our Azure Migrate portal, and then we just hit refresh. We give it some time and it should start listing the servers that have been discovered so far. Any questions? Any challenges? Okay, so I'll carry on. So back to our Azure portal, after hitting refresh, we can see that one appliance has been discovered, one has been registered, which is a Hyper-V host. Now, we would actually need to wait for discovery to complete, and it's going to list out the servers that have been discovered so far so that we can build a business case and perform an assessment. And then there you can see how much you can save by moving to Azure and exploring things like Azure Hybrid Benefits and bring your own subscription to the Azure platform. So let's give it some time. It's still in the discovery phase. So I noticed some people just joined us. If you just joined us, we are just here to show you how easy it is to migrate Red Hat Enterprise Linux workloads to Azure in a simple manner. And so far, we've demonstrated with some presentations what the benefits are with moving to Azure, and we are in the hands-on lab session. If you care to join the hands-on lab session, kindly find in the chat area, a link has been provided, as well as an enrollment key for you to participate in the labs. And there's a step-by-step instruction for you to actually follow and achieve a successful migration of Linux workloads to Microsoft Azure. So if there are any challenges, you can just put up your hand or leave your questions in the chat and we'll assist you. Great. So discovery has been initiated and we can then move on to the next steps. So I'm going to refresh one more time. Once refreshing is successful, we should be able to build a business case, perform a dependency analysis, and also assess our resources on premises. Lovely. So when discovery doesn't have enough quantifiable data to build a business case, the build a business case button is grayed out on the Azure portal. So you just have to give it some time, be patient, and you keep refreshing until you are able to now have the button. So we are going to go ahead and then build a business case. So to do that, you tap on the build a business case button. And we have to give our business case a name. So I'll call this business case 41394424. And I want to put my business case data in East US 2. Now, if you are doing this practically, it will depend on where you want to save your data for compliance reasons. So you can do that at your own discretion. But for the purposes of this lab, we'll go with East US. Now, with migration strategy, we want to use the Azure recommended approach to save costs. So I'll stick with that. I think that's what we all want to do, not spend so much on IT infrastructure. And we don't just want reserved instances. We want reserved instances plus Azure Savings Plan. To save even more, you can realize up to 76% savings by combining reserved instance with the savings plan. The currency, it's okay by me. So I'll go right ahead and build the business case. Any questions, any challenges? So building a business case can take between 5 to 10 minutes as well. So it's all about patience. Just give it time to gather all the metrics and prerequisite data for you to actually build a worthwhile business case to present to stakeholders in order to facilitate the move to Microsoft Azure. So while we wait, the floor is open for questions. If you're unable to unmute, kindly drop your question in the chat. If you're having challenges with the lab environment, kindly put your hands up and I will assist you. If you're unable to find the enrollment key and the lab environment link, I'm going to drop it again so it makes it easy for everyone. So I'm going to share the lab environment link. Just register and then use the key below to redeem access to the lab environment. Okay, so is anyone having challenges? I can see Akeem. Akeem, are you able to access the lab environment? Kindly put up your hand if you're unable to, and let me walk you through how to do that. So I have here only 3 people who have successfully logged in and are following along. So kindly, if you have questions or challenges, either put up your hand or drop your query in the chat. I would assist you. Augustus, are you with us? Are you having any challenges accessing the lab environment? Abdullahi, it would be great if you could also join us and follow along as well. You know, you don't have to do this follow along immediately, but redeem the key because it's in limited supply. So kindly just sign up and redeem the lab access key. And the environment is open, it's available to you for 24 hours to practice, right? So kindly do that, everyone. Okay, so by now, our business case is done. It usually takes a few minutes, 5 to 10 minutes. So I'm going to refresh the page and let's see if we have some meaningful data to work with. Okay, this is taking longer than usual. Okay. The demo wizard has showed up today, but that won't stop us. Let's give it some time to refresh. But I'm more concerned about our participants. Are you having any challenges? John? John is on hold. Okay. Anis, yes, Anis, I think you had a challenge earlier. You can now share your screen if you are having some challenges. So I walk you through, or just redeem your key. You can also unmute and speak. You have the ability to do that now. Are you with us, Akeem? Akeem, are you struggling in accessing the lab environment? Kindly let me know. Okay. I'll refresh this again. Lovely. So now we have some actionable insights to work with. We've successfully built our business case, and this is just the overview page. You can actually drill down into it and then see how much it would cost you to run your resources on Azure, right? And right off the bat, we can see that currently upwards of um, $356,000 is being spent on-prem, and we can see a future reduction in costs once we move these resources to Azure. So these two VMs, with enough data being gathered on premises, you're even able to get more and build a dependency analysis, know how which applications are dependent on which resources, and then it even guides you on how to carry out your migration in a phased approach or manner. And you are able to also compare the costs like we have here to build your business case. And this is very good for the IT department to convince management why it's important to move to Microsoft Azure compared to what you are paying on-prem. And even things like your electricity bill, and there are several rules for on-premises data centers that haven't even been considered yet. That could skyrocket the price and even more for on-prem. And when you look at moving to Azure, it enables you to focus more on faster time to market. If you are delivering software solutions to the market, you have more time to now experiment. You don't have to wait for procurement to get you a new server that is more powerful for you to be able to experiment and then build better applications to serve your customers. You're able to do all this with Microsoft Azure. So while I bring my second screen back online, if you have any challenges, kindly let me know and assist you. Okay, Adekunle, kindly hit skip. Godwin, showing errors during downloading metadata repository. Okay, so Godwin, kindly ensure that you are putting in the right command, the right Red Hat Enterprise Linux command. And Adekunle, kindly hit the X button at the top right corner to close the tour so that you can proceed with the rest of the lab. Godwin agent not installing. Okay. Are you able to share your screen? Kindly retry the command again, Godwin. Okay. Unable to share. A moment, let me look into it for you. Godwin, you can share now. So kindly share your screen. Let's look at the error, the challenge you are facing. Lovely. Okay. So what I'll need you to do is kindly restart this virtual machine, and then let's make sure, kindly minimize it first. Let's check if it has a valid IP address first. Okay, and tap on the networking tab on the bottom left corner. Godwin, move to the bottom of the page, and under the Red Hat Enterprise Linux DB1, you should see networking by summary, memory, networking replication, right? In your Hyper-V Manager window, yes, kindly move down to the bottom. And tap on networking. Okay, so it doesn't have a valid IP address just yet. That's why you're unable to download. So give it a restart and give it a shot again. So at the top left corner of your screen, okay, go to the very top left corner where you have the lightning bolts. Good. So just reset the internet gateway first. If it doesn't get an IP address, just restart the machine or reboot it. All right. So I'll move on. I'll share my screen once more and we carry on. If anyone is having any other challenge, kindly drop it in the chat and we would assist you. I'm going to proceed. Oops, I put in the wrong password. Okay, so this is your total cost of ownership. You can further drill down from the overview section. Let's look at the on-premises cost versus Azure tab. And you can tap on that to see a side-by-side comparison of how much it would cost you to run these two VMs on Azure. So right off the bat, we can see a potential saving of around 93.228K USD, which is a significant saving by moving your resources to Azure. Right, and there's a lot more to cover. You can compare your storage costs, you can compare computing, networking, and so on. There are certain parameters that you can even change that we didn't consider. These are found in the assumption section. You can add more details to even fine-tune your total cost of ownership further, because you understand your environment, you know how much it costs you to pay electricity, you know how much it costs you to pay your employees for managing the data center, the labor costs, and so on. So by putting these things in, you are able to get an actual cost or close to accurate cost of how much it would cost you to run your resources on Microsoft Azure. Okay, so that is the total cost of ownership calculator and how it functions, an overview of it. Now, for the next step, after performing your total cost of ownership and seeing how much savings you would realize by moving to Microsoft Azure, you want to do what we call an assessment. You want to have the assessments done, and then, okay, Shalom is also encountering an error. Okay, so Shalom, you can just hit exit. It seems you tried opening the DB server more than once. So you have two windows running, okay? So just exit this and then work with one hypervisor window. That should fix your problem. Okay. So Godwin, your internet should be back now, I think, and you should be able to download the agents. And Adekunle, I think your problem is solved. Okay, so I'll carry on with the assessment phase of this. So I want to switch back to the discover phase, and then we'll carry out an assessment after the building of the business case, where we've already seen how much savings we would realize by migrating to Microsoft Azure. You can carry out a dependency analysis as well. This would require you to install another tool, which my colleague Raphael will demo shortly. But then let me just carry out the assessments to make sure that VMs that we are bringing to Microsoft Azure are compatible at least to some degree before we do the lift and shift. So we will tap on assess, and we want to assess our workloads against Azure VMs, because that's where we'll be moving them to. So you tap on Azure VM. And over here, let me fine tune it for our lab environment. So you have to hit the edit button, and then we'll make a few changes in here. So first, the target location. Now, where do you intend, which region do you intend to move your virtual machine to? You know, Azure has a lot of regions worldwide, availability zones, and so on. These are data centers scattered across the globe. So in our case, I feel East US works for me, and that is what my organization wants. So I'm going to move my workloads to East US in the United States. So East US 2 would be fine for me. And then the storage type. Azure provides a lot of high performance storage for your usage. There's premium managed disks, there's SSDs, and so on, with a premium managed disk giving you one of the best performance in terms of throughput. So, and you also have to consider all these things to balance cost with performance, right? So there are certain trade-offs that you have to consider. In my case, I'll go with premium managed disks. So I'm going to check that. And for savings options for computes, for this purpose of the lab, I'll do none. But in your actual migration scenario, maybe you are ready to commit to a 1 or 3 year plan, you can choose either of these options for yourself. For the VM sizing, the Azure also offers you various current generation virtual machines, right? We are going to stick with us on premises. So Azure tries to gauge what resources you might need to provision on Azure as well, like for the virtual machines that are running in your Hyper-V environment. So I'm going to choose us on premises, so it gives me something close to what I'm running on-prem. And then with the virtual machine series, like I said, Azure provides a lot of virtual machines with a lot of cost and the maximum amount of RAM that you can choose. For the purposes of this lab and not burning through a lot of lab credits, I'll go with something minimal and something too that will help us migrate to Azure faster for the purposes of this lab. So I'll stick with the DSV3 series, which can give us up to 128 gigabytes of RAM, 32 V cores, and more. The storage is dependent on what you choose, so you are not limited. With comfort factor, I'll stick with 1. And in case you are having in the Azure portal is very helpful in the sense that if you don't understand something, you can just hover your mouse over that. You notice an exclamation sign on whatever resource it is you are trying to use, and then it gives you a brief summarization of what you are looking at. Right. So we'll go with the pay-as-you-go. Pay-as-you-go pricing. Pricing in US dollars, discounts is 0. And our uptime is 31 days per month for 24 hours a day. So I'll maintain that. And in our case, we are not using Windows Server. Okay, so I'm going to uncheck. I have a Windows Server license, and I'll stick with I have an Enterprise Linux subscription because that's what we are bringing from on-prem to Azure Cloud. Okay. For security, it will solely depend on you as well, but you can choose to activate Windows Defender as well, right? And for the purposes of this lab, I'll stick with no. Great. So once we are done here, I'll hit save. And then I'll go to select service to access. Now you remember from our on-prem environment, we did an assessment first. We installed an appliance. This appliance has cataloged all the virtual machines we have running on a Hyper-V host, and they'll be listed up here for you to select. So we are going to give our assessment a name. I'll go with assessment 41394424. And then I'm going to create a new assessment group for the purposes of this. I'll just name it Red Hat Enterprise Linux Service because that is what we are working with for the purposes of this lab. And then our appliance name is basically what we have installed on a Hyper-V host on-prem. If you have more than one appliance, you see all of them listed here, so you can select and migrate at scale. So in our case, we are working with just 2 virtual machines that we have on-prem. And let me just go and show you in our hypervisor environments that we have 2 virtual machines running. One is our DB server, one is our web server. And this is what we are looking to migrate to Microsoft Azure, right? So this is what we are seeing, the hypervisor is reporting. So I'm going to hit review and create assessments for these 2 servers. So we have here a summary of your assessment name, the assessment type, and the group name that you gave, and the number of servers you've selected so far to assess. And then you hit create assessments. And it's going to take between 5 to 10 minutes again. If it's delaying, let's hit refresh, but let's give it some time to complete. I'll once again pause to assist anyone who has challenges in accessing the lab. I can see, okay, so Shalom got past this error. That's Shalom. Who else has an issue? And I can come in and assist, or my colleagues can also help as well in that regard. If you're unable to unmute and speak, kindly drop your query in the chat and we would assist you. Okay, so I'll refresh the page, but before I refresh, you notice under assessment, it says 0. That is because the assessment is still ongoing in the background and I have not refreshed this page with the new data. So I'm going to refresh the page now. And once the refreshing is done, we should see a total number of assessments change from 0 to 1 once the assessment is completed. Lovely. So our refreshing is done, and over here, okay, after I copy the code and log in, this is the response I get. Great. Share your screen once more. Let me show you a walk around Adekunle. I think you can share. Try again. I've made you a presenter. Still showing errors during download metadata. Okay, Godwin, I think an IP address isn't being assigned to your virtual machines. So what we'll do is you can restart at the top left corner of the screen. You will notice that when you tap the lightning bolt button, move to power, and then reset or reboot machine, and that should fix that, hopefully. So Adekunle, kindly tap on your appliance configuration manager page in your browser. Lovely. Kindly say, you see where it says appliance auto update status. You see where it says you can either click here to turn on auto update. I think that's the part you missed. So click here to turn on auto update, and then you will progress without incident. Okay, so once you click it, just give it some time to run, and then you can paste your key and proceed again. So just give it some time to run and verify once you've done that. Okay, so give it some time. It's going to run, and then you can progress with the next steps. All right, so I'll take back control and share my screen again. Okay, so we can see the assessments have changed from 0 to 1, and we have 1 total assessment, and we've grouped our Red Hat Enterprise Linux workloads into 1 assessment. So I'll go right ahead and then click that's number 1. Then it brings you to the Azure Migrate Discovery and Assessments page. And as you would remember, I named my assessment 419-413-94424. So that is it. If you have other assessments you'd want to review, they would all be listed up here, and you can select which assessments you'd like to review. In our case, I'll go with this. So I'll click on it. Shalom also has the same error. Okay, Shalom, it appears your VMs don't have an IP address, so they're unable to communicate with the internet. Kindly left click the Thunderbolt button at the top left corner of your lab and then restart the host machine. That should fix it. Okay, so moving on, we click on it. And in real world scenarios, to have a very comprehensive assessment, you should also consider installing the dependency agent, and it's going to provide you more insights into your service dependencies, right? So because in my case, I'm using just the discovery agents, it just doesn't go so deep as the dependency agent would do. And actually, to run a comprehensive assessment, you should have the assessment, the discovery, and then the dependence agent running for quite a while to gain a lot of insights into your environment. So over here, we can see that there are two operating systems and the distribution is unknown. But if we had the dependency agent, it would probably tell us that we have a Red Hat Enterprise Linux version 9 or version 8 or something along those lines to review. And then here you have metrics to compare and then weigh the options of whether it's a good idea to lift and shift without modifying certain things to Microsoft Azure. And you're also able to drill down into your Azure readiness. So I'm just going to tap on Azure readiness. And then over here, we can see our two virtual machines with its on-prem storage, its RAM details, as well as other information, right? And then you can be able to then decide if it's a good idea to use this migration strategy, which is the lift and shift, or you probably want to modernize and then migrate to Azure using platform as a service solutions. But today, our focus is more on the infrastructure as a service solution. So we are going to lift and shift, right? So I've done the assessment cost, the total cost of ownership. I've done I've taught you how to install the migration appliance, download it and apply it to your Hyper-V host or your VMware environment or your bare metal servers. We've looked at the total cost of ownership. We've looked at how to perform assessments and then group your servers into phases of migration. You saw me create a group. I named it the Red Hat Enterprise Linux assessment, and I've grouped these two virtual machines as Red Hat Enterprise Linux machines. If, let's say, our on-prem Hyper-V host had a Windows Server VM as well, running as the third server, or some other distribution of operating system, I could also group them as well, and they'll have their own assessments. This allows you to carry out your migration in phases without moving everything, right? So that would bring me to the end of the total cost of ownership calculation and also performing the assessment. And I'll allow for any questions at this time if there are any. And if you haven't been able to access the lab environment, I would encourage you to do so right now, as it would help deepen the knowledge we've shared with you today for you to be able to practicalize what we are doing. So without wasting much time, I would hand over to my colleague Raphael to carry us through the rest of the labs for the migration phase. So Raphael, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Enoch. So next we are going to look at the migration aspect once the assessment is done. So the next thing that follows is normally the migration part. So let me share my screen shortly. Now while So when you look at the Azure Migrate project, you'll see two aspects of it. So this is the Azure Migrate. You'll see two aspects. You have the assessment tool on top, then on the bottom you'll see a section where we have migration tool. So both of them use the Azure Migrate tool to perform to do both the assessment and migration. So then what you're going to do now is we are going to first initiate discovery from the Azure Migrate tool. So you'll be asked some couple of questions where you want to migrate, and you are going to select Azure VM. Are your machines virtualized? Yes, with Hyper-V. And the target region, I'm going to choose East US2. Remember, if you still have challenges during the lab exercise, please don't forget to drop your concerns on the chat, and our able team will be able to help you navigate. So after this, we are going to confirm that our target region is this. So once we confirm this, we can't go back. So you need to make sure, because Azure has multiple regions. It has the most regions of any cloud platform. With over 64 data centers regions across the world, compared to any other cloud platform, with the ones nearest in Africa being South Africa. So it depends on where you want to host your workloads. So it is strongly recommended that you host where you are close to where you are located for latency issues. But to the purpose of this lab environment, I'm going to select East US, then create the necessary resources for the migration. Okay, so once this is done, we're going to go back. Okay, you have this section where we need to prepare the replication of plan. So we are going to download the Azure Site Recovery, the ASR agent. So which is the one that typically is responsible for replication. Then you're going to download the registration key file to register the appliance, the ASR agent. So you'll find the downloaded the exe file on the downloads, which we are going to launch it. Sorry, just okay. So you can see we have the Azure Site Recovery for Hyper-V. So we are going to do the installations. Okay. So once we've installed it, we are going to register using the the registration key that we downloaded from the Azure portal. So I'm going to browse for the key file, which we'll find it on the downloads. Then proceed. So I'm going to connect directly without a proxy server. So I'm going to give it some time for it to finalize registration. It takes some time, about 15 minutes to finalize the registration. Then once it's done, we are going to initiate the replication of the two servers, then perform test migration, then full migration of the two servers. Right. So our registration is finished. So I'm going to go back to the browser and go to the Discover page. So I'm going to refresh this page. I'm going just to repeat the same process. Sorry. Finalize the registration. You can see our registered Hyper-V host is now connected. So this final registration is the one that's going to take some time. But once it's finished, we can continue finalize the replication of our two servers that we have in the Hyper-V hosts. Okay, while we wait, if there's any questions regarding the whole lab session, please, you're welcome to share your concerns, or if you have any issues regarding this lab exercise. So far, our team here is able to help you. All right. Okay, so Rodin, I can see your question. You have you are in the step where you need to test the IP address. All right. Could you share your screen? Just for us to look at it. The website has encountered an expected error. All right. We'll go back to the could you go back to the Hyper-V? 192. Okay. Could you sign into the VM? Connect to it, to the web VM. Could you type clear? Type clear on the task on the VM. All right. So it's just saying that the DCP error timeout. Okay, you need to log in again. Okay. So repeat the the previous step, just a previous step before that. Enable sudo systemctl, enable. Wait, okay. Okay. Could you try to install the Azure Linux agent? Just the previous step before that.
So kindly check your command, Godwin. The install, you've missed an L. So probably if that's what you entered, you'll be having errors. So the agent is installed, so you can carry on with the next steps.
Right. So I believe now you can be able to continue the other step. So make sure you also do the same for the DB side of things. Just follow the steps indicated. All right, so you'll give us update on your progress. So let me take back the control. Okay, so our appliance has finally registered. So the next step, we are going to initiate discovery of our servers and do the replication. Okay, so before that, we are going to set up a landing zone for our services, where we're going to create a virtual network and a storage account. So I'm going back to my Azure portal, and in here I'm going to search for virtual networks on the top search bar. I'm going to select it, then I'm going to create a virtual network for us to set up the prerequisites to host our targeted machines. So this resource group and the subscription are going to remain the same. I'm going to name the virtual network, and the region I'm going to leave it at East US. and I'm going to leave everything else as default. So this is the IP address that it's going to be assigned, and the subnet. So once done, I'm going to review and create the virtual network. All right, so once this is done, I'm going to create a storage account. So this storage account is going to act as a cache that is going to temporarily store our data. Once we copy once the replicated data is being copied from on-premise to the cloud. So this is the storage account. I'm going to create it. Okay, so I'm still going to use the same resource group. For the storage account name, I'm going to give that and provide the name, and yes, so for the redundancy of the storage account, I'm going to select local redundant storage. Then I'm going to click next, where I'm going to set up networking, the networking aspect of it. So for the networking, I'm going to choose select public access from selected virtual networks and IP addresses, and I'm going to select my network that I've created. Migration VNet, and the subnet should be the default subnet. Right, after that, I'm going to go to next. I'm going to disable soft delete. Under data protection, so I'm going to uncheck the soft delete for the blob. After that, I'm going to review and create a storage account. So the final thing that I'm going to create here is a public IP address. Then initiate the replication. So while this continues to deploy, I'm going to create a public IP. So on the search bar, I'm going to type in public IP and select it, then create one. Okay, so I'm going to leave the resource group and the region the same. So the name, I'm going to give it a random name. It's going to be an IPv4 basic SKU, and the assignment is going to be a static one. Then I'm going to leave everything else. So just before that, I'm going to add a DNS label to it. Then after that, I'm going to review and create. So once we have all this set up, I'm going just now to initiate the replication. So back to my Azure Migrate. server database and web apps. Go back to the migration tool. You can see our discovered servers are 2. It has been discovered from the ASR agent. So I'm going to initiate replication to this. So initiating replication is just a smooth process where you're going just to choose what I want to do. It's migration of servers, virtual machines. So if you want to migrate just the app services or Java web apps, that's for modernization of your applications. There's also that option. I'm going to choose to migrate them to Azure VM, just a lift and shift. And yes, my machines are in Hyper-V. Then I'm going to click continue. So here is where we have where the assessment aspect was important. So I'm going to import the data from the assessment project, the assessment that my colleague Enoch has done. So I'm going to select the assessment project that he did. I'm going to yes, apply. Then I'm going to select the group that he created and the assessment. This is the assessment that he created. So from here, you can see the 2 virtual machines. So I'm going to select all of them, both virtual machines, to initiate replication. So I'm going to click on next. So for the target, I'm going to select you just choose the resource group that we're still using. Then I'm going to select the replication storage account. So I'm going to choose the one that we've created. And the network that we created. It has been assigned the default subnet that we have. So for the availability option, I'm going to choose no infrastructure redundant. So once this is done, I'm going to go to next. So here I'm going to, you can see this is the target. It's from the target. Now we're going to have the compute where now it has imported the settings from the assessment that we've done, the standard DS2, the name, the OS I'm going to choose like Linux. So after this, we're going to initiate replication. Okay, so the aspect of disks, I'm going to leave it as default. I'm not going to put any tags and initiate replication. So this is, we copy the data from on-premise to the cloud. So at this point, it will be a good time for us to take a break, maybe a 15-minute break for us to refresh. And because now the replication has initiated, so I can view the replication status from this. I can just come here to my Azure Migrate and server database and web apps. Go down to migration tools and under overview. You see the options to replication. So you can see it's now 0% synchronized. So it has to reach, that's the initial replications. So it has to reach 100 synchronizations for us to initiate test migration. So you can see the replication is now completed. It's not starting. From here I can view the jobs, what's happening. So here it's just an extensions error, but it's no problem. But we're just going to wait until the synchronization is finished. So at this point, we are going to take a 15-minute break. Then we can reconvene. I'm going to set a timer for that. I know we are tired. It has been a long session, but we are nearing the end. So bear with us. So let me set the timer for 15 minutes for us to get a refreshment. Then we can resume after that. Hello again. Welcome back. I hope you all had a wonderful short rest. So we can continue monitoring the synchronization. So once we have the final synchronization up to 100%, is when we can initiate test migration and do some tests on our two servers before failing over to the cloud. So you can constantly monitor the job updates on this side to see if there's any issues on your side. So replication typically depends on the network speed that you have on your on-premise, and so depending on the speeds, sometimes it may take hours. Sometimes in some instances it may take even days. So depending on the workloads that you are running on, the size of the workload, and the internet network speed that you have on your environment. So you can see from this overview page. So the first step, we've initiated replicating 2 VMs. Then after replication, we need to perform the test migration. Then after test migration, the final step is the actual migration after the tests. So we can continue monitoring this. So you can initiate test migration from this side, or then you can see the option to clean up the test migration from this other side, which is by a click of a button. You actually remove the test migration. Then after that, you have the final the actual migration, where you need to turn off your on-premise machines before you stop synchronization or stop replication and do the final failover. Okay. So is there any questions so far from this whole exercise? I would like to hear your feedback, or if you have any questions that you may have regarding the whole migration process of Linux-based workloads to Azure environment. If you have any questions, you may drop a chat for us to respond. So I believe you all have access to the labs, and if you don't have access to the labs, you can go and sign up and take advantage of the access key that we provided. Register and also do it yourself. Have the hands-on practice of the whole migration process of the Linux-based workloads. Since this synchronization will take some time, typically it takes a while for it to synchronize. That's copying the data from on-premise to cloud. You can see this first web server is at 3%. and the DB is still at 0%. We can continue monitoring it from this end. But from your end also, your team can also keep practicing on this lab exercise, and we'll also keep this chat. We will also keep this chat open in case anyone has issues. We can respond to you and help you resolve the issue that you may encounter during this exercise. So at this point, I'd like to thank you for your participation and your attendance, and I'll like to hand over to Gift.
All right. I believe we've come to the end of today's workshop. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. You'd also be receiving the recording, so you can expect that in your email. You'll be receiving an email from us with the recording. So thank you so much, everyone, once again. Let's have a productive day.